Also learning the name of one of the doctors in charge of treating the victim. His name is Dr. Thanh Nguyen, and he's been suspended. According to a letter from the Inspector General, the state determined that the health or welfare of his patient was in danger. 12 News attempting to speak with Nguyen in person and over the phone, but so far we've not been able to reach him.
And another doctor in charge of her care at Hacienda has resigned. Employees say they did not know the woman was pregnant until her baby was crowning and she started to moan.